Jai Shri Ram. Let us examine this topic, whether God is formless or has a form. I have compiled about 15 points here. To begin with, if God decides to take a form, is someone going to tell him, "Sir, you cannot take a form, please remain formless"? So, the whole idea is fundamentally ridiculous. So, you understood very well where I am going at, what I am driving at. So, let us now begin with the first one. The first point stating that God has a form is Bhagavad Gita 12th chapter 5th shlokam, where Krishna 12.5 क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्ता सक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखं देहवद्भिरवाप्यते. Krishna is saying that the difficulty in worshipping the unmanifest is much greater. Therefore, since we are all embodied beings, dehis, it is preferable to worship an idol. Now, the word idol unfortunately has acquired a negative connotation, though those people who actually attack idol worship have their own idols, right? I don't want to name any cults, those desert cults mainly, and the communists, and the so called Hindu secular reformists who get carried away by the rhetoric spouted by some very great reformers, in fact. But these people, for some reason, have failed to discern that the condemnation against idol worship came at a time when there was such a lot of rot in the Hindu society that a strong antibiotic had to be applied. And as we all know, when you fall sick and if you take an antibiotic, many beneficial bacteria also get killed. So, these reformers, I don't want to name them again, I leave it to your imagination to understand who I am talking about, because we are living in such times that people for silly reasons will file cases, 153A, 295A, and all kinds of legal hassles and headaches will follow. So, please understand, in fact, I consider that man one of the greatest. In fact, he is known as the grandfather of Indian Renaissance, Hindu Renaissance. Of course, at the time when he launched an attack on idol worship, it was for good reason, because once you are flushing out all the filth, once you take a powerful antibiotic, even beneficial bacteria die. I am sure in calmer times and other times, he would definitely concede that it is all right, because anyway it is not his concession, the Vedas themselves are suggesting. Okay, now let us look at all the evidence. I gave you the first one is Bhagavad Gita 12.5. Second one, Adi Shankaracharya. Of course, Adi Shankaracharya is also attacked by these fellows very meaninglessly. In fact, Adi Shankaracharya, though he used Advaita to vanquish the Buddhists and the Jainists and all the Nastics, he perhaps composed more stotras and stutis than anybody else. Okay, Adi Shankaracharya says, Murtam chaiva amurtam dve eva brahmano rupe iti upanishad tayor vadvau bhaktau bhagavata upatishthau क्लेशाद्वा मुक्ति स्योदरे मुक्तिस्य उदरे atayor madhye. Now, the Sanskrit is pretty simple to a certain extent. Murtam chaiva amurtam, that means has a form and is formless. Dve eva brahmano rupe, these two are the forms of Brahmana. Brahmana, the Vedic name for God. God has both a form and is formless. Iti Upanishad tayor vadvau. The Upanishads themselves are declaring this. This is what Adi Shankaracharya has said. Now, after Adi Shankaracharya, who was a child prodigy and at the age of 6 he is believed to have mastered all the Shastras, who has composed innumerable stotras and stutis and commentaries and his Advaita and all that, so many. So, you cannot dismiss Adi Shankaracharya, and if you do, then there is something wrong with you. So, that is the second evidence. Adi Shankaracharya is declaring clearly that Upanishads themselves are saying that Brahmana or God, the Vedic term for God, has both form and is formless. Okay. Now, third one. The third point I want to make is all the Alvars, 12 Alvars. The word Alvar means one who is immersed in devotion, and Nayanmars, 63, who are Shiva devotees. But you see, except the name, everything else is the same, their devotion and all that. And by the way, Krishna himself says, Rudranam Shankarascha. Rudranam Shankarascha. I think it is 1023, please check up. Now, the point here I am trying to make is so many a galaxy of sants. I don't use the Christian term saint because those saints are actually dangerous people. Like, for example, Frantic Xavier, or they call him Francis Xavier, who mass murdered Hindus, tortured to convert people. Goan Inquisition I am talking about. Listen to Shafali Vaidya's talk on Goan Inquisition. You will understand why this man is actually a criminal of Indian history, and the Pope should actually give us an apology. So anyway, don't use the word saint, use the word sant. Now, Alvars, Sri Ramakrishna, Tukaram, Nayanmar, Tyagaraja, Meera, and innumerable sons, Niyam Karoli, Baba, you will lose count. All of them could not be lying, no? Tyagaraja worshipped Rama. Tyagaraja had his idols too, which were thrown into the river and which magically came up. And if you read, do you want to tell me that all these sant across thousands of years were all lying? No, they can't be lying. So that is Apta Vakyam. Apta Vakyam. Apta Vakyam basically means you accept as true the statements made by your well wishers. Like your mother must have told you who your dad is, and you accepted it. You never tested, you never took a DNA test of your dad to check whether he really is his dad. You believed your mother. So also with all the saints or the sants. Sorry. Now the fourth point. Fourth point I already told you actually. If God chose to take a form, are you going to tell him not to, and he can't? Who the hell are you to tell God not to take a form? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham. Krishna said that he is going to come. So he may not come with his original form that we know. He might take any form to get the work done. So that discretion is always with him. Number 5. Bhakti is possible only if God is Saguna. Bhakti is impossible if the God is Nirguna. That is why in these desert cults, these people, they say their God is formless, but they turn towards the west and pray. Now, if he is formless, this fellow cannot see him. And if you cannot see him, how do you know he is in the west? And they say that his face is everywhere. If his face is everywhere, he cannot have a form. And if he has a form, he can have one face which cannot be everywhere. So, and a formless God, their formless God also has a throne to sit on. How can a formless God sit on anything? Because he has no, so he has no form, and he has a footstool. He wants to keep his formless feet on perhaps a formless footstool. So the whole idea is ridiculous. They have their own forms, they have their own idols. And if you look at the meaning of the word idol, anything held in great respect is an idol. So their holy books, their shrines, and so many other objects they consider as very holy, to the extent that they consider the foreskin and the hair of their prophet and so many other things as very holy. The grave is holy. Oh my God! So all these things, if we happen to commit any sacrilege against them, they would say, "Sir, tan se juda." They will decapitate you. They will kill you. So these are all their idols. So let them not give you this bunkam that they are not idol worshippers. And now let's go to the next point. Anyway, here the other point I would like to make is, just as a watch tells time, we wear a watch to know time. We know that the watch is not time. We salute the national flag, but we actually salute the sentiment. Saluting the national flag is actually instilling patriotism. We are not saluting the stick and the cloth and the paint that is smeared on the cloth. Only an idiot would talk like that. So the national flag is also an idol, an image, and a reminder of the need to be patriotic and render service to the nation, to the society that has given you so much. Okay, actually, this is the ninth point in my list, so I will gloss over that. When I come to 9, I will just skip over that since I have finished it now. So, fifth point was bhakti is not possible. Bhakti is possible only when God is saguna. Bhakti cannot be possible if God is nirguna. And as a result of this nirguna bhakti, these fellows are going mad. They are getting frustrated, you see. Sixth point, Tulsidas says, nirguna is water and vapor, saguna means ice. It's simple analogy. So, many sons also gave us such analogies. Nirguna means water, vapor is nirguna, saguna means ice, and all three are H2O. So, seventh one, the Vedic statement, na pratima asti, ekam advitiyam. There was only one, there are not two. Na pratima asti. That means there is no pratima. Now, the word pratima in Hindi and in Telugu means image. But in Sanskrit, Vedic Sanskrit, the word pratima means incomparable, peerless, non-parallel, unequaled, unrivaled. So that means God is incomparable. He cannot be compared. Now, if it cannot be compared, it must have a form. Can you compare something formless with something else? So, if God had been formless, there is no question of any comparison. So, the Vedic statement na pratima asti itself is indicating that he has a form which cannot be compared to any other form, right? It is unique in its own way. It is peerless, non-parallel, par excellence, incomparable. So, remember this, na pratima asti. Pratima means incomparable, peerless. It does not mean an image. Only in Telugu and Hindi, the word pratima means an image, not so in Sanskrit. So, na pratima asti means it cannot be compared, it is incomparable. So, what can you compare, by the way? Something that has a form. How can you compare something that is formless? You can't even see it. So, where is the question of comparing it? And the Vedic statement is he cannot be compared. So, if he cannot be compared, it means he must have a form. That's my logic. Okay, that's a solid point. Seventh one. Eighth, throughout our Shastras, repeatedly it is said, he does not have our material gunas. He is Shuddha Sattva, Shuddha Sattva. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. The Sattva that we see in Prakriti is always, even in its purest form, is an admixture of some Tamas and Rajas. Whereas Krishna's form is Shuddha Sattva, that means pure Sattva. So that means it is not a Prakritik guna, it is Aprakritik. His form is also not Prakritik, not based on the Panchabhutas and the Trigunas. He is beyond Trigunas and he is beyond the Panchabhutas. So that is the 8th point. So, and he has infinite Kalyana gunas. Infinite number of Kalyana gunas. That means in English you can call it auspicious traits. Okay. That was the 8th point. 8th point is he has no material gunas, he has infinite Kalyana gunas, and he is Aprakrita Sharira, not made of Panchabhuta or gunas. So the 9th one I already told you, just as the watch tells time, so also the image reminds us of God. In fact, the point is the 10th point now, which is connected to the 9th point. The double slit experiment will tell you that consciousness is the ultimate reality. Please check double slit experiment. The double slit experiment. Electrons started behaving strangely when they were under observation. So when they were not under observation, they were behaving like a wave. When they were under observation, they were behaving like a particle. So wave particle duality is a very interesting debate in quantum mechanics and physics. Okay, so the net result of the double slit experiment is that electrons seem to be aware that they are under observation. Therefore, the conclusion, inescapable conclusion, is consciousness is the ultimate reality. And the Vedic statement, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. That means we are immersed in Brahma. We are immersed in God. We are surrounded by God. We are in God, within God. God is all around us. Why? Because there cannot be anything beyond God. If there is something beyond God, that means God has a limit and a boundary, which is again illogical. So there cannot be, God is infinite. So everything has to be within God. It's a very simple philosophical statement. So Krishna is in the clay, he is in the stone, he is in the metal, he is in every subatomic particle. So won't he be there in the idol? So if Krishna is there in the clay, stone, metal, subatomic particle, won't he be there in the idol? భగవంతుడు ఆ మట్టిలో, బంక మట్టిలో, రాయలో, మెటల్లో, ఇనుములో, సబ్ అటామిక్ పార్టికల్స్లో ఉన్నప్పుడు విగ్రహంలో ఉండరారా మూర్ఖుడా? విగ్రహాలు పూజించే వాళ్ళు మూర్ఖులు అని చెప్పి నోరు పారేసుకోకుండా వెర్రి వెధవల్లారా. దెన్ ద నెక్స్ట్ వన్ ఈజ్ now Bhagavad Gita 14:27. Bhagavad Gita 14th chapter 27th shloka, Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amrutasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya ikantikasya cha. Brahmano hi, of the impersonal Brahman, I am the foundation, I am the basis of the formless Brahman. Amrutasya avyayasya cha, immortal, imperishable, eternal. Shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya ikantikasya cha. And I am the basis, the refuge of the ultimate happiness, which is moksha. So Krishna is declaring clearly that he is the basis of the formless Brahman. 14:27 Bhagavad Gita. Now you cannot reject Krishna. Okay, when Adi Shankaracharya and many great scholars across time zones say clearly that Gita is the Veda Saram. Now if some fellow wants to call all idol worshippers fools, then he is the biggest fool. That means because he is condemning Krishna himself. Okay, now in connected with this 14:27, you have verses from several Puranas. I will quote just one, Padma Purana. Padma Purana says that the effulgence, the fulgence, the radiation, the radiance sort of, the light emanating from the toes of Sri Krishna is the impersonal Brahman, beyond which is the Supreme Person Krishna. Yan nakhendu ruchir brahmadhyeyam, yan nakhendu ruchir brahmadhyeyam, brahmadibihi suraihi, gunatrayam atitam, tam vedam Vrindavaneshwaram. So the Lord of Vrindavan is actually covered by the blinding light that emanates from his toenails. I am repeating again, this is again in connection with 14:27, the 11th point I am discussing here, that the light, the effulgence, the fulgence emanating from his toes is the impersonal Brahman, and which actually conceals the Lord. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihita mukham. The Veda also says this light, blinding light, is covering us, covering Sri Krishna, and the light emanating from his toes is actually covering, and we are not able to see the person. The supreme eternal person is has a form. So that is the 11th point. Now let's go to the 12th point. The 12th point I have identified from the Kena Upanishad. Avijñātam vijānatam, vijñātam avijānatam. Easy to memorize. Avijñātam vijānatam. Those who say that they know, they don't know. And those who avijñātam vijānatam, those who say that they know, they don't know. And those who say that they don't know, know. They know. It's an interesting paradoxical statement. Basically what this means is, if you are dogmatic and insisting dogmatically that God is formless, then you are running a grave risk of being identified as a bloody idiot. Because the moment, God is the ultimate paradox, the moment you try to define God and limit God, he will give you proof that he is the exact opposite. So be careful. Do not. So that is why Veda also says, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. At some point the mind reverts. The mind and the senses, after making all efforts to know God, at some point they turn back. Total internal reflection. They come back and say, no, God is beyond my ability to understand. So God is the ultimate paradox, and the Veda itself is saying, Kena Upanishad, Avijñātam vijānatam. Those who say that they know, they don't know. Vijnatam avijanatam. Those who say I don't know. Well, it's a interesting, paradoxical, cryptic statement which has a profound meaning which I just gave you. So do not dogmatically insist that God is formless. The right position is we have some theories and explanations based on Aptavakyam and also our perception, but nothing is certain. God is the ultimate paradox and mystery. Okay, now 13th. The 13th point is, in the Mahabharatam, Krishna shows his Vishwarupam on 3 occasions. 3 occasions. The last one is to Uttanka Mahamuni. So, can the Vishwarupam be formless? Yeah, the 11th chapter, Vishwarupam, entire. That's my favorite chapter, 55 slokas. It is awesome. If you read it carefully after knowing the meaning also, then you will literally have a vision of the Vishwarupam. So Krishna shows his Vishwarupam on 3 occasions. How can a Vishwarupam be a formless Rupam? Now the 14th point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, this can be subsumed under point 3, where I said that all the Alvars, Nayanmars, all the Sant Jan are all there. Meera, all of them worshipped their Ishta Devatas. They had their own idols, deities. Okay, we'll call it deity worship if the word idol sounds a little odd. No problem. I already told you, Krishna is there in the subatomic particle, in the clay and in the stone and the metal. So how can he be not there in the idol? So Chaitanya Charitamrita, I am quoting from Adi Leela 2.12. Tanhara Angera Shuddha Kirana Mandala. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 2.12. Tanhara Angera Shuddha Kirana Mandala. Upanishad Kahe Tanre Brahma Sunirmala. Upanishad Kahe Tanre Brahma Sunirmala. That is, Chaitanya is saying that again the effulgence emanating from his body. The Upanishad said the toe. Now Chaitanya is saying the effulgence radiating from his body is called Brahman by the Upanishads. So one more, that is the 14th point I gave you, and 15. One more you can add. 15 Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 11. Vadanti Tattva Vidasaha Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdayate. So the Bhagavatam is saying God is in 3 forms: Brahmeti, Paramatma, Brahma, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Brahman is the formless. Paramatma is seated in the hearts. He is the Antaryami. He is in the heart of every being. So stop eating meat. Meat eating is an artificial habit we have picked up from the desert cults. A Hindu should never eat meat. So that's a different topic. I have already talked on that. I will present one more comprehensive discussion on why you should not eat any meat. And if you do eat carelessly, then the consequences will be terrible. Okay. Here, Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 11. Vadanti tattva vidasaha tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti. Of course, God is one, they are not two, but then he appears in 3 forms. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti shabdayate. These are just words to describe the one God who is Brahman, formless, Paramatma, seated in the heart, Bhagavan is the personal God, your Ishta Devata. You can have a hotline, you can talk to your Ishta Devata. That is why Tulsidas also says, Tulsi Ram Krupal so, Tulsi Ram Krupal so, Kahi Sunao Gundosh. Tulsi is saying, Rama is so merciful, so compassionate. You can confide, you can tell him about your virtues and also your defects, your moral flaws. That means your strengths and weaknesses. Tulsi Ram Krupal so, Kahi Sunao Gundosh, Hoye Dubari Deenata, Parampin Santosh. And you can write a lot of commentary on a simple verse like this. What Tulsidas is saying is, you open a hotline with Rama, every day talk to Rama, You can talk to Sita Maiya, you can talk to Lakshman, you can talk to Hanuman, your Ishta Devta, and you can tell them, you can tell Rama that this is the problem, these are the difficulties in trying to control your senses, the Arishad Vargas, and confide in him. And once you confide in him, he will ensure that all your miseries are wiped away. Hoye dubari dinata parampinu santosh. And you will be conferred the everlasting bliss of eternal companionship with him. So Tulsi Ram Kripal so kahi sunao gundosh hoye dubari dinata parampinu santosh. So I have given you a good number of points, okay, some 15 points. So don't let these fools try to tell you that God is formless. God can take a form, yeah, whenever he wants. Who are these bloody intellectual pygmies to tell God not to take a form? Bolo Jai Shri Ram.